Council work session. We'll go ahead and jump right into the agenda. The first item to discuss today is the mayor's position and compensation package at the request of Councilman Conyers.
Yes, so thank you very much. I brought up several times now that we should look at the mayor's compensation package as well as whether or not we want a full or part-time mayor in Fairhope. I was correctly told by Lynn and the mayor that the full-time versus part-time, that is a function of, and I think Lisa may have weighed in on that too, that's a function of putting that to a vote with the citizens. That is not a decision for the city council. But, you know, the reality is you look across the board, and I've printed off a spreadsheet of a bunch of cities, but regardless of whether the position is considered full-time or part-time, I think that the vast majority of the mayors listed here on the spreadsheet, and I'm sure Mayor Wilson would attest, probably work 40 hours a week and then some. So the compensation is determined by the council. Whether or not you want to deem it full-time versus part-time, that would have to go to a vote of the citizens, and that essentially is meaning, okay, legislative act, all right, even more. But that essentially would be whether or not you can't require somebody to work full-time. In our case, you can compensate them whatever we deem is reasonable and fair, but you can't require them to work the full 40 hours a week. I had a list of cities that I wanted to get information from. The mayor supplied some information she had on a few different cities. I didn't get all that figured out today, but I plugged in what I could. So what I did is I put the municipality, the type of government they have, the population, whether it's full-time, part-time, the annual budget of the city, then the salary of the mayor pro tem or council president, and the salary of the council, whether or not they had insurance and auto allowance, and really just something to have a talking point for us to consider. I mean, if you look at this, Fairhope is pretty low on the list as far as mayor's salary. Obviously, prior administration, Mayor Camp took an additional $60,000 to manage the utilities, or to oversee the utilities. So that would put us more in line with where we are on some of the other cities. But mostly just wanted y'all to have an opportunity to look through this information. I'm sorry I don't have it in a slide format, but I can go through and read some of the basics. You know, Fairhope's got a 20,000 population, and some of these I rounded off, but 20,000 population, approximately $65 million budget if you combine the utilities and the general fund. The mayor's salary is $32,400, council president $10,800, council $9,600. Insurance is optional through the city, and then auto allowance. You don't have an auto allowance, do you, Mayor?
No.
Or any city vehicle?
No.
To use, I didn't think so. So Daphne, for example, is slightly larger in population. They do have a full-time mayor, and their budget's in line with what our budget would be. I guess if you backed out the utilities, that mayor's compensated about $75,000 a year. Then there's several other cities that have a city administrator, and then there's one or two on this list that had a full-time city manager, Mountain Brook, Panama City, Auburn. The rest had some form of strong mayors or strong council, and then about half and half as to whether they had a city administrator or whether the mayor was the administrator. So I just thought this might be a good spot for us to have some data to start a conversation. I think whatever we implement would need to be done at least 6 months in advance of the upcoming election, and it would not go into effect until the next term. So, who's to say who will be here at that time? But I think that it's something we definitely need to look at, because $32,400, if we're going to base it just on the base salary with no administrator and a part-time mayor, is probably not adequate compensation for the amount of time expected or the amount of expertise expected for this position, in my opinion.
Yeah. Jimmy, I'll jump in and say I agree with you. I think that no matter if you call it part-time or full-time, I think it's a full-time job in Fairhope. Even if they say they're working part-time, it's full-time. Even if you have an administrator, it's full-time. Even if you have a manager, it's full-time. It's just full-time. It's a lot of responsibility that goes along with being the mayor in Fairhope. And one thing that we don't have on here, and I'm looking at a lot of these big cities, and I'm familiar with a lot of these cities, and they don't own all of their own utilities. So there's the utility superintendent's position that you could add to the city of Fairhope. It was $60,000 prior. I don't know if the mayor's salary in any of those, I'm going to guess probably not. That was strictly salary and didn't include any stipend they may get for that. It would probably just make that even greater. So, and I'll point out that I even think that our council, and yeah, I'll say it as a council member, I think our council members are underpaid. The last term, we bumped up the mayor's salary and the council salary by $200 a month. And if you look at that list, other than Auburn, if you look at Baldwin County's council members, we're still we're actually well behind the curve there. So I'll agree with you. I think something needs to be done about the mayor's salary, and I also think the council salary should be bumped up, to $12,000 or $13,000 a year. And I think that the mayor's salary, just for throwing numbers out, should be, somewhere around $75,000, $80,000 maybe even.
That's kind of the magic number I had in my head, but no real basis for it.
But is that getting a city administrator?
I mean, I was thinking about that but that's probably one of the most important things for us to discuss is what roles would you expect?
I would think it would be, even if you had one mayor. I mean, like I said, I feel like it's a full-time job, whether you have an administrator or whether you don't have an administrator.
The city administrator.
Quit ringing because you have an administrator.
Well,
You still want to talk to the mayor.
I'm saying the role of the city administrator is full-time.
Right. Well, but like I said, even if you tried to be a part-time mayor in Fairhope, you have no choice.
I'm not, I think the mayor is a full-time and the city administrator is a full-time. I mean, we could put this together with a little bit more columns just to look for that. I just think it's.
This is just somewhere to start
Absolutely.
the conversation.
And this is good
I think
start.
it's full-time, Mayor, no matter what other structure you have to the government.
But it's hard to expect a mayor to do a good job being a full-time city administrator and a full-time mayor. That's all. It's difficult. Something always has to be left off every day.
Jimmy, I don't know how far you want to get into this discussion, but, I mean, just for a starting point, I'm going to throw a number out there around that $75,000 for a mayor and $12,000 or $13,000 for council members for just a point of discussion. Council, any thoughts?
I would say north of 75, but.
Robert and I talked, he was way north of me, I was around 82. But I feel, we all feel, I think the whole council feels the same that since it may not be listed as a full-time, but we all consider it a full-time job for the mayor, and they should be compensated, for it. I don't think there's a problem there, it's just a function of coming up with a number where I guess we'll all agree on.
Well, there's the unknowns, and I guess that's why I mean, if you said 80, I wouldn't argue with that. If you said 85, I probably wouldn't argue with that either. But once you start getting to the larger numbers, if you do weigh in, and you did have a mayor that did also say, well, hey, wait a minute, I want to be director of utilities, now all of a sudden they're making 140. You could lower the salary of that, though. You can change that at any time.
Could you eliminate, the mayor taking other roles within the city?
You could, but you can't. As you're sitting here deciding that today, you can't forecast what the next council might do. But you could say, you would hope that they would think, okay, well, even if we do have a mayor that we hire as utilities director, then you can always lower that salary. That's a salary you can change after the election, midterm, at any time you want. So you could probably home in on that.
Well, if I were to take this is sort of the starting point on these columns, what would y'all want to see added, and what would you say I might as well just scratch off of here that's not really that beneficial? Any additional information?
I would add a column for insurance and benefits, because other mayors have other benefits other than a salary too.
Yeah, I've got
And in this-
insurance and auto allowance in here.
Okay.
But if the mayor drives around town and puts mileage on their car, they can be compensated for that. So
I don't
say
ever do
mileage.
that.
Some do that and some
But, you know,
didn't put that.
I think
out.
that it's-
Whether you choose to or not, it's like you.
I'm
could
just saying
also
the
have
insurance that we had grandfathered in, and we've changed that insurance, is a new slate of council or a new mayor going to get the insurance that was based on what was offered before, or would it be treated as a new employee?
I think you're right. I think that does need to be decided.
Because that is
upon.
part of a full package. The value of family insurance, which is what everybody gets here, is free. And it's over $17,000 value because it's family.
Yeah. But what does one pay, a new employee pay for family now?
Does anybody
Kim,
here?
you've been here for almost 8 hours. Do you know the answer to that question?
She went through it this morning, so, or maybe.
I'll do orientation tomorrow.
Oh, gotcha.
But in my interview, I asked the question, it was $275 a month.
For just you?
For family coverage.
Oh, family coverage, okay.
That's the question I asked was for family.
I think the deductible's different too. That's what I'm saying is,
But we're still
Doing
providing
apples and
insurance.
oranges.
We're
It-
still providing it to
it's
some
insurance,
degree.
but there's deductibles and things like that. There really isn't any with the grandfathered. And I think that can just be defined, because it is part of the whole package.
Counsel, what would you want to, you were saying north of 75? If you were to put a number on it, Robert? Jimmy?
I mean, I'd say between 75 and 85 is what seems reasonable, and I would throw in maybe some type of use of a city vehicle. I mean, I feel like we've probably got an extra vehicle.
Well, no,
or two
I
around.
could have used a city vehicle, but if I'm going out and I'm doing something other than city business, it was too much of
A hassle to come
hassle to
back
go
and
back
forth
home,
and-
get that car, I mean, I just couldn't do
Right.
that, and I didn't.
That is
Wanna do
exactly
that.
right. If
So
she's
maybe
in
an
the
auto
city business,
allowance
she
in
can
lieu
do
of-
it. Yeah, you have to vote on that. prior
Right.
to-
Right, 'cause that would be
Well,
part
that's
of
what
the
I'm saying.
benefit.
Conversation has to
That's
be
part
done.
of the,
The only time I ever put in really mileage reimbursement
Taking a
is if I
trip
have
or
a trip or something.
I only see one. I see one mayor that gets an auto allowance, and that's Gulf Shores.
In
not a
Panama
single-
City.
Oh, that's just, that's for the mayor. I was looking at city
Yeah,
manager. for
no, that's
okay, so-
Panama
Prattville
City.
does.
And there was a bunch that I just,
Yeah, I
oh,
have-
no, yeah, I'm sorry. Prattville gets 12,000, and then Hartsville gets 4,200, and I just didn't ask everybody about that. If they told me, I plugged it in when I was,
I just think all of that's part of a total package.
right.
I think they get, if they have use of a city vehicle during working hours for their city business, then that would suffice, in my opinion.
It's, like I said, it's just hard.
Just a
because
hassle.
that you do need to be careful with that.
Right.
And if I'm going to drive up here, and it wouldn't be me, just if a mayor comes to work in the city vehicle and then after work has to do something personal, just trust me, it's tricky. I think it would be better to have just like a stipend, whatever that looks like.
Then that's, in that event, I'd rather plus up their salary and not worry about it. That's my thoughts anyway.
Yep.
Yep.
I would agree. So where do y'all suggest we go from here? Just fine tune this data a little more and start coming back with some specific numbers
Well,
that we
it
think
sounds
about?
like we're real
or-
close.
Yeah.
Kevin, I hadn't heard from you on that.
Yeah, he did, 82, said it right off the
82.
Wrote it down.
82.
Said it right off the get-go, bro.
Jimmy says 75 to 85, so he's at 80 roughly.
Yeah, roughly 80, yeah.
Robert said north of 75.
Hey, come on, Rob, tell me.
You know.
You look at Opelika with the.
Yeah, Opelika's pretty strong.
Yeah, 120,000 for their mayor, for the city.
But they have a city administrator.
Right, and with the city administrator.
I-
And they specified that their mayor was the chief administrative officer, but they do have a city administrator too.
Right, I
so.
think that it would be helpful for some of the city departments. No, I forgot what I was going to say, it was important. Oh, on tonight's agenda is the Auburn comp study. And if you wanted to wait for their recommendation, that's going to be incorporated in this study too.
I don't know. I feel like it's something we can work out.
I think we can work it out. I mean, that's not, you know, we're all in, it's not a problem. We're trying to work out if we want to do it or not do it. Everybody wants to want to do it. It's just a function of
We're real close to a number here.
where we stop.
Where you at, Rob?
100,000? I'm not running, by the way.
I ain't either.
Mayor, do you have any?
I think that we need
Dollar
a city
numbers.
administrator, and you back it up based on hiring a city administrator. And I think that city administrator, you can come up with what that job looks like, because we have directors in Public Works, we have a chief in police, but when it comes to City Hall and other things, having that help is good, because I spend most of my time on personnel issues, signing a ton of, it's full-time just that. And I do the rest of the things that I feel like are the role of mayor over and above that.
I think that's a debate for another day. I mean, that's not even really, I don't even know if that's for this council, city administrator. That's we have to base this on what the form of government is today and what we have, not what we may or may not have, a couple of years from now. And just do the best we can. What about council salary?
I'm interested. I'm not that big on bumping it up myself.
Well, you want to get qualified candidates to run for council as well.
Well, that's
I mean,
true.
I don't think you brought that up the last time, and then you
Yeah.
admitted to me that not one single person complained that we're making $9,600 a year. I mean, it's the lowest in Baldwin County.
And I voted for it, so.
Yeah.
I think
can't-
you
I can't
raise
be
it,
swayed. It's just like,
but you have
I
to
still have the same type of theory.
include the package of the insurance. So I think you need more comps on what others
Well,
have to
we
pay
know
for
that
insurance.
we know that's a given, so we're only talking salary here. I mean, it's implied that we have insurance. For now it is, and then we can discuss whether or not we take it away or keep it. But I mean, I'm trying to keep the discussion simple. As it stands right now, we have insurance, and so we're only focusing on salary. I would make the suggestion that it be, a little small bump of 12,000. I just don't think anybody in the city would get upset with that. In fact, when we bumped it to 9,600, I did have a lot of people say that it was still too low, and I don't feel like I'm beating my own drum here. I mean, we're looking at other people that may run for office. It's not like we're getting rich even at 12,000.
Well, actually, we are.
$1,000 a month after taxes you're not getting rich.
We are looking at the other people that run for whoever gets elected, because it
Right.
doesn't affect, this doesn't affect us at
Exactly.
all.
That's right. So I'm just going to throw that out there. Anybody have any other thoughts from 12?
I'm going along with 12. That's in line with Daphne, Spanish Fort, Foley.
See, I'm gonna get beat up again.
Yeah.
Less than other cities.
Two-thirds of what Orange Beach has paid, and less than Daphne. And even, like cities, it's less. You want to work on that some more?
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind maybe seeing if I can't find out if some of these other places have any additional benefits that I just didn't learn about, and then come back and maybe make a proposal after I update this some more and just say, here's my recommendation, and I think we ought to consider this and let everyone beat that up and kick it around some.
All right. Let's move on then. Item number 2, business license fees discussion. Ms. Mazur, I believe you have some data.
Afternoon, gentlemen.
Hello?
We did a complete review of our business license policy and procedures, but I think what you are most interested in is the rental area.
sorry?
The rental?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Basically, what we've come down to is real estate companies who are also in the rental property management pay on their commissions from the property that they manage, okay? But they don't get a separate business license until 50% of their business is in the rental property management. So they're still paying, but they don't get a separate business license. So that was just a little caveat that I was unaware of. So that is going on, and then we are still putting out, requiring a business license for the person who owns the piece of property that is being rented, whether they are renting it themselves directly or a management company is renting it for them. The difference here is, if, let's say, a piece of property rents out for $1,000 and the management company is $100 commission, there's $900 of gross revenue there. That is a business income. And it's been explained to me, we're following the policies and the recommendations from the Alabama Municipal Revenue Officers Association. They sort of set up the guidelines, they train the revenue officers, and they take the attitude that income is income. Now, you can agree with that or not, but that's their attitude, and they recommend that you do require a business license from those who have property that they are renting out.
Let me give you an example of that, too, if I may. If you rent a unit for $1,000 a week and you tack on a $125 cleaning fee, the $125 cleaning fee is gross revenue as well. It doesn't cut, yeah, it's added. Because you ultimately are deducting that.
Yeah, you are, yeah.
As an expense.
That's true. Now, Alabama Code 115190.3, because this was brought up by a citizen, does not permit us to require business licenses for each unit in a multi-unit development, like apartments, or duplexes, or triplexes, but they have to have one business license that covers the whole business. So they're safe. We're not going out and going to start requiring a business license for every apartment.
By the same token, that one unit, gross revenue is all the units combined.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly right. So you're collecting it, okay? Whereas the difference between that and the property management and the individual owner is you're not collecting on all of the revenue gained from that piece of property unless both parts of that equation have a license. So we are also currently requiring Fairhope business licenses from property owners who are renting to family members, who are renting primary property even if it's due to a temporary transfer pending a return to the property, renting while attempting to sell, renting with an option to buy. And one could, argue that this represents income according to the association, but it's a real stretch to call it a business arrangement. It's tough to justify when a parent goes out and buys a piece of property for their son or daughter's family to move into, and that family repays the parent, pays that mortgage through the parent, and to call that income to the parent. That's an ROI. And even, federal and state governments treat that differently. So we took a look at that, and we're coming up with the following recommendations. Looking for a clean and a simple way to have a policy that governs our business licenses for rental property. We're recommending that we continue to require the business license from owners of short and long-term rentals, even if they're being managed by a third party. However, in an effort to be fair, we are recommending that a single long-term rental exemption, and that would cover the types of situations I just mentioned. And we would delineate them in the ordinance that would guide this, and we would have to ask proof, of that this is a family member who is renting this piece of property from you, or it is your son who's paying your mortgage, whatever, through that property you've given him. If a property owner has one such property and then has another long-term or short-term, another piece of property he's renting, then he must get a business license. So he could have two pieces of property, one long-term, we're not exempting short-term, but one long-term that meets the other conditions that we listed can be exempted. But if he has another piece of property that he's just renting, that must have a business license. And there are no short-term rental exemptions. We're not recommending anything there. Because if you have multiple short-term rentals, you are in the business of running property. Now, also mentioned was, where do we draw the line? Are we going to put business licenses on lemonade stands and all of that sort of stuff? And of course, we're not. But it would behoove us to let people know that junior entrepreneurial efforts are not going to require a business license. If your son wants to go out and wash cars, earn some money for whatever it is that he wants, or walk dogs, or babysit, or whatever, those are not business license requirements.
Lynn, I like what you said. I do. And I wanted to ask this, though, because there are some other benefits to getting the license other than just the fee. It ensures that people are carrying out a business in a proper zone. There are certain residential zones that you can't have, say, for instance, short-term rentals.
Right.
And when you force people to get a business license, you are able to, more easily enforce your laws. And so, would anybody, if you like this, you may not like any of this, but I happen to like that. First, I've heard it too, and I like what you're suggesting. Would anybody have a problem with saying you have to get a business license, but it's no cost for that first long term? That way, we have a record of what's being used as rental property. Because you're trying to determine if people are conforming with all of the laws as well. So, instead of paying the $150, you'd have to go get a business license, but it's your first long-term rental is free.
Yeah, we could work that out. That could be done.
Council, any thoughts on that?
Well, I have another question.
Then you're not charging them anything, but you're making sure that all other things are complied with.
If I run a business that manages and collects the rent for 13 homes, my gross revenues will be, for the year, would be $156,000. Is that correct? I'm going to be paying a business license for.
If you run them for
Well,
12
I'm renting for
What you're renting
$1,000 a month, I'm renting the home for $1,000, whatever, I just based it on pretty simple numbers, $1,000 a month, 13 homes for 12 months is $156,000. That'd be my gross
If you're the business
income. And I'm the
manager,
business renting these homes.
yeah, but if you're the business manager, you're not getting all of that, you're getting a commission.
the 10% fee.
You're
on
getting
that.
like a 10% commission, and that's what you're paying.
How about the guy that's not the manager but owns the homes? and
He's
sets
got a business
up?
license, and he pays on his gross revenues.
Right, so he wouldn't have to get one individual.
No, they're site-specific, he has to get one for each
But
home.
why? He's paying double then. He's
Well,
not only
no,
paying a business license for each 13 homes, but he's also paying a business license for the gross revenue of the 13 homes.
no, it
No,
would be,
uh-uh.
the manager would only get, you
This isn't a
you
manager,
both
this is a
would.
private, I
Right.
bought 13 homes.
So
I manage
nobody
all
else
homes.
would pay,
I've set up a business,
You set up a business,
and I get a business license based on the gross revenue.
and they're in 13 different parcels.
Yeah.
Okay, that's 13 different business licenses. And your business license is, after the first year, the fee is based on your gross revenue, so you
For
could have
each
some
one,
real
not a total.
non-performing houses there that,
So $12,000, you pay a business
But
license.
my point is, you're still paying, the
Yep.
business license is based on all the homes I own.
You'd pay for
That's
13.
right.
you'd
You
you pay for
13
13
licenses.
separate business
You'd have to have
licenses,
13
because it
licenses.
is site-specific in the
Now, I understand that's the
code.
way it's written now.
That's the
I'm
way the
saying
code
you're double
calls for it.
dipping by doing that. Because I'm already paying
is,
on my gross revenue for the 13 homes, because I own the
No, you're not.
homes.
No.
And I'm not paying, I'm making I'm making the $156,000
And you're going to pay on that you're going to pay a business license fee on that
for
revenue.
that business.
No.
No, each
So-
of those is considered a
Each one of those is
business.
licensed.
So I don't have to get the
separately.
business.
You don't have to get the overriding business.
No,
Right.
no, but you get a business license for each home.
For-
I don't
Because each
understand
of
why you would
It's-
not
it's-
do it for that if I'm
it's
running a
ridiculous.
business.
Well, you are
But
running
it
a
is-
business. If you've got 13
Makes
homes
your
that you're
own.
running
It's
out, you're running a
site-specific.
business.
Correct. So I
Yeah,
need a
but each
business
one of
license.
them is in a different site on a different parcel, and therefore requires a separate business license.
it's crazy. That's what it is.
But that's
I mean, I'll be
that's
honest with you, I don't
site-specific
agree with
comes,
that.
Well,
well,
every-
that
I
comes
think,
from the
I
state
think you need to
code.
have a business license for any business you run in the discussion. Now, if I'm out there and I don't have a business and I have 4 or 5 homes that I have a management company do, I can understand that because that's the revenue they're getting, they're not paying anything on it. They're just, the company's paying a business license for the percentage that they make off managing the property,
Well-
but the homeowner doesn't.
The real estate
If you'd like to make
business.
a trip to Montgomery and
No, I
discuss
just-
that with them. that
Well, I
would
just
be-
want to mention, though, if you have a realtor managing it, they have their business license for doing business, which is renting property. They would either pass through to the owners a fee that they had to pay for that business license for each location, or the owner would pay it.
They have the opportunity to
That's
do
how,
that.
that's how that would work.
And if you look at the last, or not the last page, but the next to last page on the business licensing among random municipalities, there's 17 cities, and all 17 of them have, their license is location-specific. This
Yeah.
is, we would be the oddball in the whole state to not do that.
I think we would be.
Yeah, now, again, I understand it on everything, but 'cause the only reason I bring this up is everything I ever rented, I did on my own. I didn't hire anybody, handle my money.
Okay.
I handle my own money.
And did you have a
And I had a
license?
business license every time, but I had a whole pile, I had 3 or 4 homes.
Did you have a license for each home?
No, I didn't.
I don't,
do
I mean,
not wanna
it's
miss
it's
it.
confusing.
That was '07, I don't do it anymore. That was prior to '07.
And then just,
Let me get
if
specific.
if we were to try to make it
But
simple.
that's the reason I bring that up for the private guy. I don't
Right.
think that's correct or fair.
I mean,
I
part of
think
me
that's
feels
I'm in
the way.
that boat, I'm in that boat, and I do think it's fair, because I own 2 properties that I do rent, and I have a license for both of them.
What
And
about
that
the
the
fact they
same-
paid
Well, hey, that's just.
double
I was one man.
tax
It's my
rate on,
opinion.
property
Still think it's
taxes?
unfair.
Say what?
What about the fact that they're paying double the property taxes because they don't get the homestead exemption?
That's a choice you make. That is a business
Price
choice
you
you
pay when you
make.
turn that house into a rental.
Right.
Yeah.
I just think we hit them
It's
twice.
a greedy glove right here.
What I wanted to put in this, just to keep it simple and not have to verify, oh, did you buy this for, a family member because maybe they couldn't get credit or whatnot, and they're paying the mortgage by just saying the first one is exempt. So if a person has one rental, but that's up to y'all.
Yeah. That's, one rental.
It's not, you're not in the business
you-
of renting.
You don't want to be trying to live on one rental.
Can we
Right.
say that I don't know what, I think we got a lot of difference of opinion up here, to be honest with you. And we need to, move forward somehow on this. But let me ask you this, how many people like the one long-term rental exemption, or you don't like it at all?
I mean,
It should be more than one.
Then you get back to people
Well, that's
that
what I
have,
was
and then you get back to people that have multiple rental properties, and you don't think they're in the rental property business?
That's what I say, is if you try to verify all that, then I think that's when it gets muddy. But
And I also think that even that one exemption ought to just be free.
What's rental property and what's not, for.
that's why you just exempt one. And that gives a benefit. I don't think there's that many people that go out and say, I'm going to buy 5 pieces of properties for 5 members of my family. I mean, it's probably wouldn't happen.
We have any idea what kind of revenue this generates for the city?
This is not about
50,000 maybe?
revenue. This is not about revenue, it's just about being consistent. So whatever y'all want to put in, this is not going to be a large income thing, but it is what we have to do if we're going to try to be consistent with anybody doing business in the city.
I mean, Jack, most of the people, subdivisions that have no short-term rentals, that's in their covenants, right?
Yes.
No,
Well,
it's
it's
not allowed in
also-
it's not allowed in R1.
In anything-
Or in R2
Part of the
here.
ordinances.
That's part of the ordinances.
It's only allowed in R3, R3A.
But a lot of the communities do, they're stating in their covenants that regardless of what zone they're in, they don't allow short-term. That's not what they want in
But
the
that's
community.
independent of our own
Right.
ordinances, which don't allow them.
Right.
Crack down on that. I mean, I appreciate all but you reading through those notes, I was like, man, we're getting in people's business. Just me personally.
In what way?
Just all the data that you talked about requiring, if their gross receipts are over this and that, and I just don't think.
Well, they have to bring them in, and how accurate they are whenever they bring them in, but once a year, they come in to renew their license, and they say,
Well-
okay, here are my gross receipts, and okay,
I
this is
stated
your
the same
fee.
thing, Robert, that you're saying is that you're already putting that on your tax return, additional income, and you're paying taxes there. I feel like it is double taxing, and I did mention that in several of our meetings, because additional income also includes child support, it includes, it's just additional pay for individuals, so, and it's gross, so it's not like, a lot of times you're not making a net profit on this, it's gross, so.
Yeah, but on the business license itself, it's going to gross, but that's not a lot. Once you get, it's 150, once you get past that, it's the, what, a 1/20th of 1%. So
Right.
1/20th of 1% on that gross is, very, very small dollars.
It is smaller than you think.
Very small dollars. It's probably like $5 or $10.
Yeah, it's not going to put anybody out of business.
Okay.
It doesn't make it go
Gotcha.
to 300 or 400, but, and then on your gross revenues, when you file it on your Schedule E, on your taxes, you do deduct all of your, expenses related to that property. So you're not really being taxed on that income. You're only paying a business license fee on
Right.
that income, which
That's right.
which is small. And I think the idea of the one exemption, is a great idea. Really, I thought it was a pretty good compromise. It allows that one that just has one, and then if you start getting into 2 or 3, I think you can argue, yeah, you're in the business of owning rental property.
What about the part here where it says, however, if annual gross receipts are less than $12,000 a year, the property owner is not required to get a business license? So you don't have to get a license at all, or you don't have to?
No, you don't have to get a license at all, but you'd have to prove, you have to come in and prove that your gross is less than $12,000 a year, and that is what one city does. We decided we would rather, our recommendation wouldn't include that, and is that enterprise? I forget which city did that.
Andalusia maybe had none, and then, Andalusia, no business license requirement.
How do you prove?
These things are
Bring
tough.
in
and
your
you-
tax return?
Yeah,
All your canceled checks.
all your
and,
canceled checks or whatever.
Well,
Or
the
your
that
the
goes-
code
that goes to
enforcement
I think that's what you
is
thought I was getting
basically,
at.
How do you do it on
Yeah.
any gross revenues for any
Well,
business?
let's see, when I went to
Yeah.
Daphne and Fairhope, I walked in, gave them a number, and they said, okay, and we went on about our business.
That's
Well,
exactly how
that's
this would be
probably what
done.
work, yeah.
We're not going to go the Gestapo on everybody.
And that's what they're
It'll be
doing.
no different.
They're all coming in now,
I'm just asking.
this was my gross revenue, and, okay, fine, now, here's what your fee is. You don't know, I mean, we're not sitting there and asking them to bring in their accountant and
We're not going to
everything
encourage
else.
them to cheat either. You bust
No.
them, there's a penalty too.
That's true.
just
Higher
one more
penalties.
thought, you have some cities that don't make you do a business license. And then if you do a business license, you must do site-specific? Okay, there's nothing in between. In other words,
There's
you
nothing
either
in
don't
between.
charge anything, but if you charge it,
It's
it has to
site-specific.
be for each, and it's like, where's the in-between? That seems a little,
Well, out of this list, there's only a couple that don't
Right.
require them. though.
Right.
One of them is in Baldwin County, one of them is Foley.
So, I've done a 360 on this myself when I look at the rationale behind everything. But I think it's perfectly fair to look at that one exemption and for specific reasons. I mean, I'm sorry, we do have people who get temporary transfers overseas or whatever, and they want to come back and they want to sell their house. Or mom and dad do buy a house for the kids, and they're paying the mortgage, but the kids are paying it to them because they couldn't afford the 20% down payment or whatever. That's not an income to the parents. And
But
there's-
is everybody going to get an exemption, or are we going to have it very specific for only those types of reasons?
Our recommendation is that they are for the specific incidences that we've mentioned.
Any
in
long
here.
term.
Long-term.
Any long-term.
You want to make it any longer, you can do that too.
That's not, but that's not what she's saying right now.
No, what I'm saying now, which are the notes from our meeting,
That's-
is that
It is written that way, but that's not what she's saying.
that was
right
the
now.
original research. After our several meetings and discussions, what we sort of honed in on is what is not a business is the parents buying a house. Is somebody renting because they have a temporary move, somebody renting on an option to buy, somebody renting on, because they can't sell the house. That is not a business. If you use the word business as your guideline for a business license, those are not businesses, those are circumstances. Those are transactions that are very different. Nobody's making a living off of that.
I would say any of the first long term.
And that is certainly your option. That keeps it clean and simple.
That keeps it simple. And then if the other thing that I would, if I had to pick on something else, having a little experience with this, is that that fee is a little on the high side, the $150. That's a little high.
Especially if you're going to try to do it for every location.
Plus, there's a $12 application fee.
I mean, I think that number should be more like, $100.
I have a question about that. I have a question on that. Is that a new schedule you're looking to input into the license code for rentals?
I'm looking at what's on here. I don't know, is that not current?
Because this
It's
150
115,
less
isn't
than
it?
25,000, that's Enterprise's
Okay.
Schedule G. That's not what we.
What is ours now?
Ours is $100 plus a $12 issuance fee on anything less than $50,000.
Okay, let's make it $75 is what's the issuance fee then.
So you're going to add a different schedule as well?
I wouldn't put a schedule on
But that's how
the.
the,
That's what you're doing if you're changing the minimum business
it.
license
I
fee.
wouldn't put it, I'd just make it a flat fee. Like I said, this, how much is it in excess of, what's the cutoff?
It's $50,000, anything over $50,000.
Is how much? There's so few gonna meet that 50,000.
Especially if you got to do it per individual.
That's
unit.
4,000.
exactly.
If you're doing a long term, that's greater than 4,000 a month even. And there may be a few doing it, but, and then when you go a percentage over that, I mean, just try to find some happy median is say
'Cause
the
you're doing it
first long
site-specific.
term could be exempted and then every other long term rental after your first or any short term rental is a flat $75.
So this calculation, it would be under schedule, currently it
You don't
falls
like
under
that?
Schedule C.
Then you're not getting in people's business.
Sounds like a money grab.
And it's 90 cents
It's
per
lower than what we have
thousand
now.
on gross receipts between
It is, it's
$50,000 and
$75
$500,000.
I didn't hear what you said.
It's 90 cents per thousand on gross receipts that go over the 50,000 threshold before the $500,000 mark.
And the initial fee is $100 plus 12%,
$12.
So $112.
What if they have a cat?
And then it's less.
Unless you feed wildcats, and then it's double.
Raccoons, more like it. That's
And
plenty
you're-
than we feed.
You're serving our animals and it's less.
Get an email on that one, why not, John? They're just having fun up there today.
And then if you're in the police jurisdiction, it's half that.
Right.
Should double it.
So what, does the 12,000 apply to currently?
No.
If it's less than 12,000, it's
Yeah,
free?
that's not.
I think it should be,
No,
I
no,
mean-
that's not.
That's.
No,
But
that's-
everything,
that's-
and all
that's
of
the
our
recommended.
taxes,
That's-
would be
that's
like
an
per
order.
half.
Okay.
You could like high-five me right now.
That's,
So
that
it's a flat
is,
fee if
Oh, I
anywhere
mean, I
it's your
looked into it and said, how to
$50,000.
apply.
The minimum fee.
But
yeah, that was,
Around that.
what, in the beginning of the research, that recommended 12,000 was.
Gotcha.
Was, trying to do whatever.
But if you change it from a different, other than $100, you would have to add a different schedule to the code while you're doing all this.
That's no problem. That's why we have you. I'm gonna throw a
Just-
proposal out there and y'all can.
Since we've been throwing
tell
out
me
so
I'm
much
crazy.
stuff, I want to make sure I'm straight on this. We got, Fairhope has $112 fee for $50,000 gross
Right,
per year. Is that correct?
yes. And 90 cents per 1,000, per $1,000
1,000
above
after
that.
the, after the.
Or
the-
Which I doubt
$9,
we have
$9 for
hardly
every
any of
10,000
that.
above that.
Yeah, I don't know
I'm
where
like
we're
you, I don't
getting
know if anybody's doing
50,000
that.
a year in
Very
any
few,
house.
that's only affecting a half a dozen properties, if
If
that.
that.
If that. Even a short-term rental has a hard time bringing that in.
If I were
this-
paying
And
50,000
what
for
y'all are
a house I
talking
was
about
running,
is
I'd be
If this were a
fine.
first-time or one-time only renter, that fee's waived.
Right,
Right, long-term,
Long-term,
Right.
right,
All short-terms are affected,
all
right.
short-terms are.
where applicable.
under 12 months.
So I'm gonna throw something out there, just off the top of my head, $75. And first long-term is exempted. I don't wanna complicate it too much, but I think they should get a license, but there's no cost for the first one. We have a record of who's renting and who's not.
I think if you change the fee from what they charge across the board, it makes it a little more complicating, a little more complicated for them. Am I understanding that correctly? That $100 is for any business, right? So then you're gonna have one type of business that's a different fee base.
Well, maybe you could do the first exempt, and
I know
then
you're trying to
the
find-
one that you get a business license on is 100,
That's
and thereafter 75.
You know, like when I renew mine, it's specific to rental property. It's a business license specific to rental property, and I just don't think that's complicating things to have a business license for rental property, as opposed to any other business. As you say, it'd be a little bit less.
Why couldn't we have an application that covers rental property and
That's all
doesn't
I'm
get
saying. It's
involved
just
with
a
everything
form.
else?
It's not that big a deal. I'll probably whip you one out tomorrow.
Okay.
I ain't got it passed yet.
You working hard, ain't you, brother?
I'm trying to get some resolution, trying to get to this impasse.
Yeah, we do need to resolve it, because it's sort of in the gray
I'm
area
just
right
asking,
now.
can I get some kind of agreement on that?
Can I ask about what you would think of the effective date of this?
When do they, what do they run typically? January 1 to January 1?
Correct.
I'd say we might relax our enforcement and then start in earnest January 1.
Well, now, the letters have gone out already,
Yes.
But
that there's a
He's
penalty as
he's
of the
basically
15th of
saying
May,
to
according
to relax the
45
enforcement.
calls I've got.
I don't know. Oh, really?
Yeah. Matter of fact, I'll say this, every one of them are paying it too right now.
Well, they go out
I
the
told them to
first.
hold
and they're-
off.
I'm
yeah,
open.
They're all
Just
paid.
Just hold off and see what we do, but every one of them said it wasn't worth that, so they're just gonna pay it.
Yeah, payment's due in January, so, we're halfway through the year, just about. And anything is prorated if you
Right.
start in the
If
middle
somebody
of the
pays
year.
now and they're not paying.
Well, it's not a function, they just started, they just got it, they've been in the business, they owe from January now, it's not a prorated deal.
Right.
It's just a function, they don't want to write a check for $112, and then also we pass it for 75, they're gonna be looking for their,
So it's
That's
pro-
true.
They keep it the way it
$37
is
back.
until,
Keep until January 1.
Make the change in
like I said,
January.
every single one I'm paying.
January 1,
Exactly.
2020.
We don't know if we're changing yet, don't we?
Don't write anything yet?
Hold on a second.
Come up to the plate and paid, or
Well,
anyways.
we changed it to just keeping everything as it is until January 1st, and then doing this new proposal. So, and then you keep everything the same
what do y'all
too.
think? I need something.
I just think it's double, I think we're already collecting double the property tax from when we get,
Do we get that? though?
We get a cut of
Does
that.
the county get that? We just
You
get our cut of it?
We get our cut of it.
millage on
Yeah.
but in theory, it's double what we're getting on a same valued home from an owner occupied. Which I guess I need to see what
Look
that
at it
number
another
is.
way too. If you don't have some kind of shield against every property being rented, and you don't have some kind of cost to it, you're talking about a crowded city too. We talk about population growth here a lot. It does a little bit to put a little bit of a bump in the road there.
Well, I think the $100 is not doing anything one way or the other. I think it's a small, minor amount. I think it's the principle of it
You don't
to
think
me.
$100 is not doing anything? Why in the world are people complaining then? Why are we even having a discussion?
I think it's the principle of the matter.
Because the gentleman I talked to today, he thinks it's a lot, when it's 13 homes, that's the reason I
Well,
brought it to
He
13.
said it wasn't.
It's 13 homes, that's 13